through Little Rock, Arkansas. Mayor Frank Scott Jr.
We deem to believe at least 2,100 residents within the western portions of Little Rock and southwestern portion of Little Rock were impacted. We know from Energy Arkansas, 27 to 30,000 homes are without power.
In Belvedere, Illinois, a storm collapsed a packed theater.
There were 260 people inside of the Apollo Theater when those storms came through. Now, that collapse killed one person. At least 27 people are injured. 2 of those injuries we now know are life-threatening. 2 others are critical. There were a total of 215 tornado warnings across 13 states.
Fox Weather's Mitty Hicks. Former President Trump is expected to be arraigned in New York City Tuesday. Texas Democratic Congressman Al Green.
The president is innocent until proven guilty. He is deserving of all of the due process that the law affords. He can have motions filed before the trial judge such that he can bring these issues to the attention of the court and the court will make a ruling.
The former president facing charges relating to hush money payments to a porn star. There's a new Fox News poll on President Biden's approval rating.
52% of Democratic Party voters would like to see someone else as the presidential nominee in 2024. 44% want Biden to be the nominee, up from 37% in February. Now, Biden's approval rating remains underwater by some 12 points among all registered voters, and his approval among Democrats is near a record low. Former President Trump now holds a double-digit lead over Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in a hypothetical 2024 Republican presidential matchup.
Fox's Lucas Tomlinson. America is listening to Fox News.
New from the Fox News Podcast Network.
I'm Emily Campagno, and this is the Fox True Crime Podcast.
And I had nothing to do with her disappearance.
I sit down with the people who lived the nightmares.
I was in shock. I was just devastated.
The investigators who tirelessly worked on the case.
And I really hope that they can catch this guy.
Bringing you closer to the story than you ever thought possible.
Listen and follow now at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
These are the stories that keep you up at night.
Get all of your favorite Fox News podcasts commercial-free on Apple Podcasts with Fox News Podcasts Plus. From Dana Perino, Kennedy, Ben Domenech, The Duffys, and many more. Subscribe now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. The Fox News Rundown, a contrast of perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. Your daily dose of news twice a day, featuring insight from top newsmakers, reporters, and Fox News contributors. Listen and subscribe now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com.
93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
Monitoring the weekend weather. 43 degrees here on Monument Circle. I'm Sasha Nixon. Here's what's trending at 5:03. As you have probably heard by now, there were tornadoes across the state Friday.
One of the more significant ones would have been in Sullivan County. Had some reports as far northeast as Johnson County, and then also to the northwest of Indianapolis, too.
Randy Bowers with the National Weather Service says it should be cooler this weekend, and those winds could be staying as high as 50 miles per hour. And you may be dealing with scammers after the storms. Harrison Silcox explains.
If someone knocks on your door and offers to fix or clean up any damage or debris from severe weather, it might be a scam, says Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita. He says you shouldn't pay these people up front with any form of currency. Instead, ask the right questions. See if they're a legit contractor. Maybe ask for an ID or license, too. If someone's trying to scam you, it can be reported at indianaconsumer.com. Harrison Silcox, 93 WIBC Mobile News.
Do you have a teenager looking for summer employment? If so, Indy Parks tweeted Saturday, you have less than 1 week to apply for seasonal positions to receive our $500 early bird sign-on bonus. After April 7th, the sign-on bonus goes down to $250, so get your applications in today. You can apply for these positions online. It's 5:04. Here's your forecast from the American Standard Heating Weather Center.
For tonight, mostly cloudy, breezy, low temperature of 29 degrees. Tomorrow, clouds decrease, a sunny afternoon, pleasant day with our high temperature at 58 degrees. I'm Wish TV Storm Track 8 meteorologist Ryan Morse for 93 WIBC.
It's still a cool 43 degrees with a lot of wind here on Monument Circle. I'm Sasha Nixon. On the level, on the go, and on WIBC.com.
I spent a lot of time in the garage, but even more time in the rain and mud. In 95, I helped tow your moving trailer. And in 09, it was sparks from me, your chains. dragging behind your truck that accidentally started a wildfire.
Spark a change, not a wildfire. Visit SmokeyBear.com, brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now's the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
You let him try violin because you love him. And if you love him that much, love him enough to make sure he's buckled up and in the back seat. Find out more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
There are screening tests to catch cancer early. Visit cancer.org/getscreened.
This week, it's the Early Bird Special, 20% off all fertilizer and container trees and shrubs at Sundown Gardens in Westfield, 186th Street and Spring Mill Road, sundown.gardens.com.
Find the path to recovery that works for you. Learn more at cdc.gov/stopoverdose.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is the Second Amendment, and this is the Gun Guy.
Boom, 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 boom. Bang, 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 bang. Boom, 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 boom. Bang, bang, bang.
With Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And good afternoon, and welcome to the Gun Guy Show here on 93 WIBC. We're thrilled to have you with us. And first and foremost, our thoughts and our prayers. You know, it's something that gets criticized. You know, people say, "Oh, thoughts and prayers." Well, you know what? Prayers work, and kind thoughts and sympathies are important. And thoughts and prayers, with no apologies, to the folks in Whiteland and down into Sullivan County and anywhere other locations were here in Indiana who got hit by these storms last night. I just saw Angela Goodnote, my friend from Fox 59, posted some drone photos on her Twitter just in the last couple of minutes. And there's just some real devastation in Whiteland and down into Sullivan County. Some homes that were completely destroyed. And a lot of other damage as well. So we are thinking about you. Reach out to us here at WIBC. I saw Tony Katz post something. I saw Hammer and Nigel post something, and they both said something very similar. They said, "Let you know what you need, and what we can do to help, and we'll make it happen." So do that. Whether it's contacting me on social media, I'm on Twitter at Guy Relford. Give me a like or a follow or whatever that terminology is while you're on there, if you wouldn't mind. I got to get my Twitter numbers up. They are embarrassingly low. Or Facebook or whatever medium you'd like to contact us. You just let us know because we'd like to help here at WIBC, and I'm sure you'll be hearing more about that. In the meantime, also, on a much less serious note, I owe a bit of an apology to a number of folks on social media because I am pretty much historically an April 1 prankster, April Fool's prankster. I tend to try to find something that sounds serious, not too serious, not anything that's going to hurt any feelings or anything, but that I can say with a straight face, or I can type out on social media in a way that has some credibility. That's just completely false, and thereby get a few chuckles on April Fool's Day, which today is. So trust no one for the rest of the day. You're coming to the end of the day. You may be safe so far, but trust no one when it's April Fool's, because somebody will get you. Well, I put out a Facebook post. I did not put it on my Twitter. I thought it might circulate a little too broadly and a little too quickly if I put it on Twitter. But I put out a post that said something along the lines of, please tune in to the Gun Guy Show here this evening because it's our last one. And I've enjoyed my time all 8 years, almost 9 this summer. It will be 9 years. But I said I enjoyed all my time and really appreciated the support and the listening audience. But all good things have to come to an end. And that was entirely, completely, absolutely, 100% an April Fool's joke. And I hope people saw the humor in it. But I felt a little guilty actually as I'm going through the comments, because I'd say it's about 50-50. About 50-50 people were going through the comments. Again, this is on my Facebook, my personal Facebook. I didn't even want to put it on my official WIBC Gun Guy page for fear, again, people would take it too seriously. But it's about 50-50 with people taking it seriously and people saying, you can't get me. I know it's April Fool's. But some people said some really sweet things and said, they appreciated, the work I've done here and the work I've done in the legislature. And anyway, people said nice, supportive, sweet things that meant a lot to me. And then I started feeling guilty because I was just the jerk who was playing a April Fool's joke. But is that absolutely April Fool's? If you hear somebody say, hey, you don't need to tune in from 5 to 7 on Saturdays anymore because the Gun Guy show's going away. Not that I know of. I mean, hey, look, I'm an employee at will. I'm about one bad word or poorly phrased sentence away from getting fired anyway, as we all are here in broadcast media. But as far as I know, I'm not going anywhere. And so please try to quell that rumor if you see it propagated, a rumor that I started myself. I can just see now the leadership at Radio Now will bring me in and say, wow, guy, we don't know, but after your April 1 show, nobody tuned in on Saturdays anymore. And so we're canceling your show because your ratings just went into the toilet. I will have only myself to blame because I'm the one that announced on as an April Fool's joke that I'm going away. But anyway, enough of that. Let's get into the serious topics for this evening. We had a school shooting in Nashville, and I've talked about it on Hammer and Nigel. Tony Katz and I were scheduled to talk about it as well. And there's a lot of things to talk about, but I put out a sincere Facebook post where I'm reacting to some of the things I'm seeing. And listen, after every mass shooting, certainly school shooting, what do we get? We get the same activists and the same politicians who come out. It's as predictable as the sun coming up in the east. People come out and say, aha, we have to pass legislation. We need new laws. We need common sense gun control. The Republicans in the U.S. Congress have blood on their hands, and the NRA is to blame. And gun rights advocates, and you can certainly put me in that category. I started a gun rights advocacy group right here in Indiana, the 2A Project. I am a proud and active and aggressive Second Amendment activist. But they're blaming folks like me, the NRA, Republican lawmakers, because we either resist or, with respect to lawmakers, they have not passed gun control, what they always term common sense gun regulation or gun safety regulation. That's my favorite. Gun safety regulation, meaning we're going to curtail the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens, and that's going to translate into gun safety. But I put out kind of a long post, and I just pulled out some examples. But I was talking about when you hear this, because they literally say, when I say they, I'm talking about whether it's President Biden or liberal politicians in Congress or the gun control advocates, the anti-Second Amendment groups like Moms Demand Action and otherwise. They uniformly, they come out in an absolutely solidified voice, and they say we can prevent school shootings, or we can prevent mass shootings in general. Prevent is the word they use. If we just pass common sense gun control. Is that true? Can we pass a couple of laws, and let's deal with them specifically? They say universal background checks would prevent mass shootings. Prevent. As in, we won't have them anymore. If we just pass an assault weapons ban, Most of them can't tell you what a quote-unquote assault weapon is because it's a made-up political term meant to demonize the most commonly owned and used rifles in America, but okay. Most of them can't tell you what one is or define it, but they know we need to ban it. And if we just do that, we will prevent mass shootings. Because if there are no more assault weapons, they will simply stop. If there are universal background checks, they will simply stop. Or how about red flag laws? We need to pass common sense gun regulation, gun safety regulation, in their words, like red flag laws, and we won't have any more mass shootings. Are any of those things true? Are they true? Well, let's look at history. Do you know that Connecticut had an assault weapons ban on the books, fully enforceable, for 18 years prior to the Sandy Hook school shooting? They passed their common sense gun regulation. Well, we won't have any more school shootings if we just pass an assault weapons ban. Really? They had one on the books for 18 years. It wasn't like it had just gone into effect, hadn't really had any time to have any influence on crime or on mass shootings or school shootings in particular. No, it'd been on the books for 18 years. And Sandy Hook still happened. In fact, the worst school shooting in history, in the history of this country, was at Virginia Tech. 32 people were killed. Well, we can prevent school shootings like Virginia Tech if we just pass an assault weapon ban? Really? Because Virginia Tech, that shooting, was committed with 2 handguns. 2 handguns. Well, but we need these things in combination. We need universal background checks and an assault weapons ban. That'll have a huge influence, really? Well, California's had universal background checks since 1991. And they've had an assault weapon ban, get this, since 1989. 1989. What were you doing in 1989? Damn long time ago. Yet the state of California experienced 44 mass shootings, quote unquote, as defined by the gun control advocates. 44 between 2013 and 2021. And they've had 2 high-profile mass shootings just in the last few months. Well, it's red flag laws. That's what we need. We need red flag laws, really. Indiana, right here in Indiana, we were the second state in the country to adopt a red flag law. Second one in the country. Because we had a beloved Indianapolis Police Department officer, Jake Laird, just before IMPD, when it was just IPD. And Officer Laird was killed by a guy with a history of mental problems. And when he took his medication, he was a paranoid schizophrenic. When he took his medication, he was okay. When he didn't take his medication, he was dangerous. And he ended up not taking his medication, murdering his mother, going out into the street, shooting a SKS rifle into the air, shooting up cars. Officers responded on near southeast side, as I recall. Officer Jake Laird was one of the people who heroically responded, engaged the shooter, and Officer Laird was killed. And Indiana looked at that and said, well, we need a way to take guns away from people who are dangerous and keep them away from people who are dangerous. So we passed a red flag law in 2005, almost 20 years ago. Yet we had our own mass shooting right here in 2021 at the FedEx facility. Why? Because Marion County Prosecutor Ryan Mears didn't pursue a red flag case after police responded to this person's residence, took a shotgun away from him, and took a report after the mom and the sister of the shooter walked into a police substation and said, this guy's dangerous. Prosecutors didn't pursue the case. So we had a mass shooting after this person should have been red flagged. So let me tell you this. Newsflash. Here's what we can conclude from all these facts. Criminals in general and homicidal psychopaths in particular do not follow the law. As much of a revelation as that might be to some folks, they simply don't. And the laws you have on the books, even when they're well-meaning, although perhaps not perfectly crafted, are only as good as public officials' willingness to enforce them. And you combine the fact that we have imperfect enforcement of the existing laws we have, the thousands or tens of thousands of gun laws that are on the books all across this country, at the state, local, and federal level. We have imperfect, flawed enforcement of existing laws. And then we have criminals who, by definition, don't follow the law. When you hear a politician or an activist say, we simply need to enact common sense gun regulation and will prevent these shootings, throw some of those facts at them and see if you get anything other than a blank stare. Because logic is simply not on their side. History is simply not on their side. But we have to persevere, and we have to be vocal, and we have to be loud, and we have to contact our elected officials, because the voices on their side are already loud and consistent and aggressive, saying this is your fault for not passing gun control legislation that we're having shootings like what happened in Nashville. No, hell no. History makes that a lie. And with that, I've gone well over the quarter hour, so we're taking a break. We'll be back, and we're going to be taking your calls throughout this show, by the way, 317-239-9393. That's 317-239-9393. And by the way, if you want to call and yell at me because you fell for my April Fool's joke, then I will take that because I deserve it. In the meantime, we're taking a break. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
In order for small businesses to thrive, they need to be smart, efficient, agile, staying ahead of the market at every turn, and finding ways to do more with less. That's never been more important than it is right now. So for a limited time, Comcast Business is introducing Small Business Savings, a deal for companies across the country. When you call in now, you can get powerful internet for just $39 a month for 12 months. $39 a month. With no annual contract and a money-back guarantee. All on the largest, fastest, reliable network for small businesses. With the company that powers more businesses than anyone else. So if you're a small business owner, don't wait. Call and get started today. Comcast Business. Powering possibilities.
Offer ends 4/4/23. Restrictions apply. New Comcast Business 50 megabits per second internet customers only. Requires EcoBill and AutoPay. Equipment, taxes, and fees extra and subject to change. Call or go online for details. After promo, regular rates apply.
Guy Relford for Premier Arms, located in Brownsburg. Premier Arms has the largest and most diverse selection of new and used firearms in central Indiana, with over 1,500 firearms in stock, from pre-Civil War firearms all the way through modern Class 3 firearms as well. They have the best prices on new and used firearms with a knowledgeable, professional, and courteous sales staff. They're also Indiana's largest Benchmade knife stocking dealer, and I'm a big fan of Benchmade knives. Stop by and see them at 3754 South Green Street in Brownsburg. Give them a call at 317-858-3030, or you can always check them out online at premierarms.com. That's my friends at Premier Arms, located in Brownsburg.
Has anyone seen Roger? Where's Roger? It's time to open the jewelry store.
Where is everyone?
Did they all take the day off?
At traditional jewelry stores everywhere, employees are quiet quitting and going to Diamonds Direct. Not just to work, but to shop. That's because even with employee discounts, Diamonds Direct offers all shoppers better selection and much better value. As a true direct importer of diamonds, Diamonds Direct has long-standing relationships deep in the world diamond industry, as well as the best diamond cutters across the globe, so they can say the quiet part out loud without the middleman markups. Diamonds Direct offers customers bigger, higher quality diamonds at a lower cost every day. Not to mention the best selection, the best customer service, best warranties, and best overall experience.
Hello.
Quiet quit paying too much for your diamonds. Go to Diamonds Direct. You won't be alone in how happy you are. Diamonds Direct. Your love, our passion. Get details, directions, showroom hours, and more at diamondsdirect.com.
For adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy, now there's Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months, and Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Nothing in me go hand in hand. Nothing on my skin, that's my new plan. Nothing is every day.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms, such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
With Skyrizi, you could achieve 90% clearer skin. Ask your doctor about the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
Life is all about enjoying the little moments. Don't miss out on them because of unexpected heart issues. At Community Health Network, you receive heart care you can trust. From simple screenings to life-saving diagnostic and interventional cardiology services, we offer it all, so you can get back to the moments that matter. Learn more about our services at ecommunity.com/heart. Community Health Network. Exceptional care simply delivered.
Ensure your comfort year-round. Join Marshall Mechanical Heating and Cooling Service Club from Johnson County's premier dealer. Call themarshallnow.com, your American Standard Air dealer.
Second to none on the Second Amendment. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. By the way, you can watch a video broadcast of The Gun Guy Show on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and just search for 93 WIBC and then click on The Gun Guy Show, you'll have it. And it's also, I believe, a link on WIBC's Facebook page. So you can do that. You can leave comments. In fact, there are a couple of great comments I just got on the YouTube feed that I'm actually going to respond to this segment. But you can also follow me on Twitter. It's at Guy Relford. Give me a follow, I believe is the correct term. I'm trying to get my Twitter numbers up, and I've been more active on Twitter lately. I've decided there are enough positive changes in that platform with the change in ownership that I'm going to start using Twitter quite a bit more. So if you don't mind, go on Twitter. It's just Guy A. Relford. No, it's just Guy Relford. And do that as well. In the meantime, and by the way, one of the folks watching the YouTube feed says, it sounds like he's a police officer. He says, why is my AR-15 an assault weapon when it's possessed by a civilian, but if I take it to work, it magically becomes a patrol carbine? Isn't that true? Isn't that true? When the, I believe it was the ATF, put out a bid request where they wanted to buy, was this ATF? It's been far enough back. It may not have been that agency, but one of the law enforcement agencies at the federal level put out a bid request where they wanted to buy like 2,500, and they called them personal defense rifles. And you know what they were? They wanted to buy AR-15s. But oh no, when the government owns them, then they're personal defense rifles. But you or I, a law-abiding citizen, wants to possess the same gun, it's an assault weapon. And back to the comment I got on YouTube, which is a great one. A great example of exactly what you're talking about in terms of the complete unfairness in the portrayal of these firearms by politicians and the media in general. When the media reported on the Nashville shooting that I was just talking about, where the shooter, a trans female, am I using that term correctly? She's a biological female that had decided to, I don't know, dress and act as a male. I don't know. Not my issue. But she had an AR-15 from the pictures that I saw. She also had a Kel-Tec Sub 2000, I believe was the model. It was a 9mm carbine. So it's a rifle length firearm, but only shoots at 9mm, just like a common handgun does. With a longer barrel, you get marginally increased muzzle velocity, but still a 9mm. And the pictures I saw of her going through the hallways of the school, that was the weapon she was carrying. So I don't know. I'm not going to speculate as what was used during her homicidal rampage that breaks all of our hearts. But it was 9mm. And then she had a handgun. But when the press reported, she said, well, she had assault weapons. And then it reported that law enforcement officers who arrived on the scene, who heroically, and by the way, I can't say enough good things about Nashville Metro. Nashville Metropolitan Police Department showed up and they came open for business. This is the video that the body cam video that came out, and there were like 3 different body cam videos that were released. This is textbook. Listen, I've taken a bunch of training courses where we clear rooms or clear buildings. This was textbook. And they were moving fast. They had a mission. They had one goal, and that was to protect lives. That was to find the shooter and put him or her down to end the threat and save lives. And they moved, man, they were fast. They went door to door, room to room, but they were moving. They were hustling. There's a big guy out front that looked to me, dark beard, looked to me like he had a shotgun. And he was on a mission. And you could tell there, and then they heard shots from upstairs. Man, no hesitation. They found that shooter and boom, it was over. And listen, I don't celebrate any loss of life, but at the same time, when someone trying to commit a mass shooting meets their just reward in the form of lethal force by a law-abiding private citizen like my client Eli Dicken, or in this case by the Nashville Metro Police Department, the fact that innocent people's lives were saved, I'll celebrate that all day long. And I hope the Uvalde Police Department, I hope every single one of those police officers, and most importantly the commanders who gave the orders to stand around for over an hour, as they're getting cell phone calls from kids in the room saying, he's shooting us, please help, come in now. For every one of them that stood around in a hallway, I hope that someone locks them in a room, whether they're still on the force or retired. I hope somebody rounds them up, locks them in a room, and makes them watch the body cam from Nashville on a loop, on an endless loop for about 48 hours straight. Man, bring them bread and water and make them watch that video and say, this is how law enforcement is trained. This is how law enforcement responds and should respond to a mass shooting event, particularly in a school. You find the threat, you end the threat. No hesitation. Do not pass go. Do not collect $100. You find the threat, you end the threat, you save lives. That's exactly what happened in Nashville. But in the meantime, back to my original point, the shooter had assault weapons and the police had long guns. Please, you don't think we see that? I don't think we see through the silly game. My defense rifle is exactly what it is. That's what I choose to have. That's what the Second Amendment provides me. That's what the Second Amendment protects. And that's not going away anytime soon. In the meantime, we're a little past the bottom of the hour. It's time to take a break. Give us a call. We've got some people on hold. I'll be going to the phone lines next and answering your questions or taking your comments. 317-239-9393. Give us a call and join the Gun Guy Show. We're taking a break. This is Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Yeah, the tournament is heating up, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And that's because right now FanDuel is giving new customers a no-sweat first bet, up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. I like to bet the underdogs in the tournament all the time. Just go to FanDuel.com/WIBC and sign up today to claim your no-sweat first bet. And then you can wager on everything from the money lines to the point spreads to which team you think is going to be cutting down the net, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So don't miss your shot at a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/WIBC to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel. 21 plus and present in Indiana. First online real money wager only. $10 deposit required. Refund issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 14 days. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. So if you're looking for a bigger house for your office or your growing family, or even if you want to downsize, call the only real estate agent I trust, Mark Dietl. Here's Mark Dietl's promise. He guarantees your home sold at an agreed-upon price and deadline, or he'll buy it. Here's what happened with Melissa and Leonard in Mooresville. They needed to move out of the state for a job change, and they needed to sell quick. They heard about Mark Dietl on our show, and everything Mark claims is true. Their house sold in 25 days for cash at the price they needed. Quoting Melissa and Leonard here, hire Mark Dietl.
Mark Dietl guarantees your home sold or he'll buy it. Let that sink in for a minute. Call Mark Dietl today and ask about this amazing guarantee. He'll answer any questions that you have. 317-755-4232. That's 755-4232. Or go to markdietl.com. That's Mark, D-I-E-T-E-L, markdietl.com. Tell him Hammer and Nigel sent you.
I'm Joe Chiuro. Tornadoes ripping through parts of the Midwest and South yesterday, killing at least 18 people, some of them in Little Rock, Arkansas. Fox Weather's Max Gordon is there.
Incredible scenes from this neighborhood. The power pole at my feet looks like a pencil that's been snapped in multiple pieces. Just amazing to see. Just the scenes of destruction here. This tornado struck at about 2:30 in the afternoon.
The dead include 7 in Tennessee's McNairy County, 4 in the small town of Wynne, Arkansas, and 3 in Sullivan, Indiana. Former President Trump's son, Eric, is speaking out about the arraignment of his father.
People are coming up to me, giving me hugs. The support is unbelievable out there because people understand that we've literally become a banana republic, that they've made a mockery out of our legal system.
Eric Trump earlier today on Fox and Friends Weekend. America is listening to Fox News.
Hop into Easter and save more at Family Dollar. Gussy up for the occasion with dresses and rompers for ladies and girls starting at $5. Find more to celebrate with pre-filled Easter baskets starting at $6, or DIY with festive basket fillers starting at just $1. And give sweet somethings with Reese's and Cadbury eggs 3 for $3, and bags of Palmer chocolate eggs and bunnies, buy 3, get 1 free. Family Dollar, helping you do more.
1 point, 1 swing, 1 tackle, 1 step. 1 trusted hospital system for orthopedic care. Franciscan Health's orthopedic, sports medicine, and rehabilitation teams offer state-of-the-art treatments, including total joint replacement, physical therapy, and the latest techniques and interventions for a variety of conditions, including arthritis and orthopedic sports-related injuries, keeping you in step, 1 step at a time. Find a full range of orthopedic care in one place. Go to franciscanhealth.org/orthocare.
AE Ammo is Greenwood's ammunition superstore. The largest variety in training, hunting, and self-defense ammo with the best prices locally guaranteed. Factory new 9mm FMJ ammo starting at $12 per 50-round box. Factory new 50-round boxes, $380 from $14.99 and $45 ACP from $18.99. And with the AE Ammo Customer Rewards Program, start earning points today towards money back to use on future purchases. Shop in-store or online at aeammo.com.
Hey folks, it's Abdul, and I'm running for mayor of Indianapolis. Now, I lived in the city for nearly 20 years, and I've seen the city at its best, and I've seen Indy at its worst, and lately, been a lot more worse. Record murders and record potholes. We can't expect different results if we re-elect the same people who are responsible for our city's problems. So go to AbdulForindy.com and read about our plans to take a tough but smart approach to dealing with crime. Read about our creative approach to dealing with road funding, and learn how we can restore public trust in government. Everyone, regardless of zip code, deserves the right to live in a neighborhood with safe streets and good roads. It's time to try something different. Paid for by Abdul for Indy.
The show about gun rights, gun safety, and responsible gun ownership. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. During the break, I was looking at the comments on my Facebook post, which again, folks, April Fool's joke. I said this was our last Gun Guy show, and it's been a pleasure, and I've enjoyed it. But the show ends after tonight. It was an April Fool's joke. Not going anywhere. Not that I know of. But the comments, I got to tell you, I'm feeling tremendously guilty here because an awful lot of people left really sweet comments, just saying that they enjoyed the show and other supportive nice things, and I'm feeling guilty now. Nothing like being a jerk and fooling people and having them respond with kindness and support. So that makes me a jerk. But in the meantime, I hope people saw the humor in it. And please, if you hear it, oh yeah, the Gun Guy show's over. No, please, it's not. It was all April Fools. In the meantime, as I mentioned before, but let's go to the phone lines. We've had some folks who called in and have been on hold for quite a while. And we got Paul. Paul, welcome to the Gun Guy Show. What do you got for us?
Hey, first of all, I wanted to tell you thanks for taking care of the guy in the Greenwood Park Mall shooting.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's just awesome. That guy had to save some lives.
You bet.
And on the guy on the circle, that's pretty funny. But Nashville, you're all over it there. I mean, those cops going in and taking care of that place, that was awesome.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the video, but I heard the recording. And, man, you couldn't have done a better job. And thank God they did what they did and took care of that. But
I agree, Paul. I think you had a question. I really appreciate your comments, by the way, but I think you told my producer you had a particular question about registration.
Yes, because I have a gun that a friend of mine, my friend and mentor for years, he used to be a Marion County special deputy, and he had a .38, and he died about 13 years ago. And he wanted me to have that gun because his wife didn't want it in the house.
Uh-huh.
So now I have it. Now, what do I got to do with that?
Okay, nothing. We don't have gun registration in Indiana. There's no gun registration at the federal level. So unless you have some reason to believe it's stolen, which coming from the person it came from, I wouldn't think that would be even a smallest of concerns. There's nothing. You can possess any firearm that you lawfully own. You lawfully own it if you're not a prohibited possessor and the gun's not stolen or doesn't have an obliterated serial number or something along those lines. So there's nothing you need to do. I get that question all the time, but we don't have gun registration in Indiana, and we don't have it at the federal level, so there's nothing you need to do. Let's go back to the phone lines, and Annie has called. Annie, I'm so glad you called. Welcome to the Gun Guy Show.
Hi, Guy. I have a serious question that only you can answer for me about Eli Dicken, but I just wanted to say about 10 days ago, I was listening to WIBC News, and I heard that Eli Dicken had been voted the Indiana Citizen of the Year Award, and I stood up and said yes. And I heard on Monday, I tuned in 10 minutes late to at about 3:40 on Hammer and Nigel. I just heard you say that you had been to the awards. You were the president. But if you could tell us about that. But first, if you can answer my question. Last year when this happened, I was pretty sure I heard that Eli Dicken had just started packing after you had just a month or two before, you and others, thank the Lord, had just gotten constitutional carry passed. And previous to that, Eli Dicken did not have a permit to carry, and he was just carrying that day at Greenwood Mall because of you and others that had gotten constitutional carry passed. Is that true?
Yeah, Annie, and no. And by the way, I appreciate all your kind comments and your support. That means a lot to me. But no, Eli was not carrying just because we passed constitutional carry. The chief down there, James Eisen, who, by the way, I think was a complete rock star throughout the whole investigation, throughout the whole process involving Eli Dicken. That police chief has certainly earned my respect and support, and I think did a fabulous job. But he at first received some bad information, I think, from the state police who reported that Eli did not have a license. And then Chief Eisen, understandably, given the information he'd been given, said that's okay because he was lawfully carrying under constitutional carry. So through really no one's fault, it got reported that Eli didn't have a license. It turns out after the fact, after we saw those news reports, and, as his lawyer, I was talking to Eli, and not to reveal any attorney-client communication, but it turned out that, lo and behold, he certainly did have a license. And I actually put out a public statement on social media, on my Twitter, Guy Relford, and on Facebook, at my law office page, and said no, and I even posted a redacted copy. I took his address and whatnot off, and said he did have a license. So no, that is not true. As much as I'd love to take credit for him carrying that day, and him carrying through constitutional carry, I can't say that because it wouldn't be factual. And the other thing you mentioned is Eli actually got the Greenwood Citizen of the Year award, not Indiana. He got the Greenwood Citizen of the Year award. Chief Eisen was there. I posted a picture. I was thrilled. Eli invited me as his friend and his lawyer, which meant a ton to me. I mean, I couldn't believe that he reached out and wanted me to be there. It was just really his family and me, and his girlfriend, and I loved being there. But it was Greenwood. Now, between me and you, and for those public officials out there in the governor's office, I couldn't think of a more deserving person to receive the Sagamore of the Wabash. If you're not familiar with that award, it's really the highest award given to a private citizen by the governor's office with the support of the legislature. And I think they ought to be looking hard at Eli Dickin as the next recipient of a Sagamore of the Wabash. I wish I had one. but I can tell you that Eli has saved a hell of a lot more lives than I have, and he saved countless lives right there in the Greenwood Park Mall, and that's why he deserves that, and I hope they're looking at that. I'll tell you what, we're at the 3/4 hour. Buzz is still on the line. We'll go back to the phone lines when we come back. Other people are calling in as we speak. So give us a call. I love taking the calls. 317-239-9393. That's 317-239-9393. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
You had a solid retirement dream. Sell your home in a few years, bank the equity, downsize, and travel. But inflation and recession has you wondering if all of your hard-earned equity will still be there. What if you could recession-proof your equity right now? You can with Truehold. Truehold will buy your home for its best current value before a recession can erode it. You get to bank all the cash now and live in your home for as long as you want. And Truehold covers all property taxes, insurance, repairs, and maintenance. And since Truehold pays your home's current value in cash now, it's yours to do whatever you'd like. Don't wait for inflation, recession, and interest rates to erode your home's value. Visit Truehold.com and discover how much Truehold will buy your home for today based on its best current value, not what's coming. Call 1-855-300-9993 or visit Truehold.com. The smarter, fastest way to cash out on your home's value without having to move. That's Truehold.com.
Are your investments going nowhere? Here's a tip that always pays big dividends. Invest in yourself, your talent, your smarts, your skills. Maybe it's time to make that investment and start a career in IT or upskill to boost your current career. At My Computer Career, you can bank on us. We'll help you get the right skills and the right certifications to start or advance your IT career. IT keeps growing, so go with the growth at My Computer Career. The right training, the right timing, the right career. Invest in you at mycomputercareer.edu. Start now.
JMV here. This week, it's the early bird special. 20% off all fertilizer and container trees and shrubs at Sundown Gardens in Westfield, 186th and Spring Mill Road, sundowngardens.com.
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. You know, just last weekend, I taught our Essentials of Indiana Gun Law class to a sold-out class at Indy Arms. Well, I've posted another one coming up on May 11th. This is a Thursday evening. A lot of people had asked us to schedule these on a weekday evening so they don't have to give up their Saturday morning. It's from 5 to 9:30, so it's 4.5 hours of the most important legal information you need as an Indiana gun owner. Check that out online. You can sign up right online at tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses. It's $50 for an individual, $95 for couples. We'd love to see you there and get your seat before it sells out. Tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
I'm a veteran. My victory was admitting I had PTSD and getting help.
As America's veterans face challenges, DAV is there.
I no longer see it as a weakness, but as a sign of strength. I call it post-traumatic growth.
DAV provides a lifetime of support, helping veterans of every generation get the benefits they've earned.
I am a veteran. I lost both legs in Vietnam.
Every year, DAV helps more than 1 million veterans so they can reach victories great and small.
My victory was getting my benefits and a good education.
I'm a veteran. When I got out, I felt like nowhere was safe. My victory was finding the help I needed.
But there's more to be done and more victories to be won.
Thanks to DAV, now I feel like I'm human again.
Help support more victories for veterans. Go to DAV.org.
Your rights, your responsibilities, your guns. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. And as I mentioned, we had Buzz on the line, frequent caller. Buzz, welcome back to The Gun Guy Show, man.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Okay. Did you see that they have made changes to the 44?
You're breaking up a little bit. Did you say the 4473, the ATF form when you're buying a gun?
Well, they have made changes on that form. They've added a few more questions, and they're getting out of hand.
Yeah. Okay, Buzz. No, I don't believe that they've made any significant changes in the 4473 recently. Now, the ATF just changed a number of forms. The Form 1 to register like a short-barreled rifle or a suppressor that you've made or other NFA item, the Form 4 to transfer an NFA item, and a few others. But all they did was they changed the mailing address. If you're mailing in supporting documents or if you're filing those in paper to begin with, they've changed the mailing addresses. So people need to be aware of that. The 4473, the last change that I saw is where they the question about being a user of or addicted to any illegal drugs, they added a kind of a line below that said, by the way, this includes marijuana in those states where marijuana has been legalized, or even if you have a medical marijuana card. They're making it clear to you that marijuana is still illegal at the federal level, so you cannot possess a firearm or buy a firearm if you're a user of or addicted to marijuana, according to the feds. So I'll leave that discussion right there. Anybody has any questions about that, you're welcome to call. But and Buzz, I may have missed it. There may have been some other change in the 4473, and you may be right. But if so, I'm not aware of that. Let's go back to the phone lines, and I'll tell you what, Kelly in Avon has called. But Kelly, let's pick you up after the first of the hour, if you don't mind, so we don't have a heck of a lot of time here in this segment. Rich has called in. Rich, you got a question, buddy?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I have a question about what are the rules for carrying in a semi-truck, and then if I was to get pulled over, what do I tell the cop?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a great question, Rich. And I'll tell you what, I've gotten this question a few times over the years, and I've had a number of people tell me that there's some kind of Department of Transportation regulation that says you can't carry a firearm in a commercial vehicle, like a semi, or any vehicle you need a CDL for, that you can't carry a firearm in that. I have looked for, and I have never found that regulation. I am convinced the regulation does not exist. I don't think there's any different rule for carrying in your semi. Now, if you're not an owner-operator, if you're working for someone else, they can have a rule that says you can't have a gun in their vehicle while you're doing your job. And that is something. We have certain protections for employees in Indiana when it comes to gun rights, but that's not one of them. So an employer can say, you can't have a gun in my truck while you're doing your job, but that's between you and your employer. It doesn't make it a crime Just means you can get disciplined or fired if you're violating that rule, like any other rule of your employment. In addition, your question, what do I need to do if I get pulled over? In Indiana, realizing if you're driving a semi, you're likely driving cross country at some point. But within Indiana, because these laws change dramatically, they vary dramatically from state to state. In Indiana, there's no duty to disclose that there's a gun in the car when you get pulled over to a law enforcement officer. It's up to you. Now, what I've typically done, since I've had a license to carry for a long time, I'll just take my license to carry and put it right on top of my driver's license, my proof of insurance, my registration, and I just hand all that to the officer at the same time. I don't even mention a gun. I just hand them my license to carry. To me, that's a non-threatening way of letting the officer know that I have a gun in the car, without having to blurt out, "I've got a gun," or something silly that may send the wrong impression to the officer. But there's no duty to disclose. That's up to you. The officer can ask you any weapons or other contraband in the vehicle, and they can ask you that question. The Supreme Court of the Supreme Court of the United States, I should say, says you don't have to answer that question, and that your refusal or failure to respond to that question doesn't create any reasonable suspicion or probable cause as to any further investigation. Now, is that the way that's going to unfold? Maybe or maybe not. That's not a battle you win on the side of the road. But that's how those rules work, Rich. But I have not found, and if somebody wants to call and correct me, I'd take the call in a heartbeat. I've never found a law that says you can't have a gun in a commercial vehicle. In the meantime, we're coming up on the top of the hour. We're taking a break. We'll be back for hour number 2 in just a bit. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Hammer and Nigel.
Noble Romans, I think one of the original ones is still open on 10th Street on the west side by Ben Davis.
Yeah.
That's one of the OGs of pizza places. Walking up on those little steps and you can watch them make the pizza through the giant window.
Because I saw an ad for that 10th Street Noble Romans, and I looked at the monster, and I thought, you know what? That's a pretty damn scary monster.
Right, that blue thing with the green nose.
Hammer and Nigel, weekdays 3 till 7 on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. Subscription required.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same but is 90% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to 4hims.com/joy. At Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the biggest brands at 90% off. That's right, get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but 90% cheaper. It's the same medication you get from your doctor, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, 4hims.com/joy. That's 4hims.com/joy for your free online visit. FORHIMS.com/JOY.
Dr. Trudy Fleer here with the 5G Home Recovery Podcast. Let's talk about mobile users getting priority over T-Mobile home internet users, shall we? You don't know them. Why should they take your internet? I get it. We're raised to share, but always coming in second, paying to be taken advantage of? No thank you. With Xfinity, there's only one priority, and that is YOU. So come on, people, say yes to Xfinity. Learn more at xfinity.com/TMOFax.
Now through April 23rd, new customers can get started with 200 megabit per second Xfinity Internet with Wi-Fi equipment included. It's all just $25 a month for 2 years with no annual contract. Or learn more about speeds up to a gig. That's up to 36 times faster than T-Mobile home internet. Go to xfinity.com/TMOFax, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today. Requires paperless billing and autopay with stored bank account. Restrictions apply. Taxes and fees extra. After promo, regular internet rates apply. Actual speeds vary.
I'm a veteran. We hit a mine in Vietnam. When I came home, I didn't know where to turn.
As America's veterans face challenges, DAV is there.
My victory's been never giving up hope. My wife is always there to remind me we have a life to live.
DAV provides a lifetime of support, helping veterans of every generation get the benefits they've earned.
I am a veteran, but after I got out, I spent 2 years alone and homeless.
Every year, DAV helps more than 1 million veterans so they can reach victories great and small.
My victory was finding the support to get back on my feet. Now I'm getting things right with my family.
I finally admitted, with my PTSD, I wasn't doing well.
But there's more to be done and more victories to be won.
Now I wish I'd found DAV sooner. I am a veteran. My victory is just enjoying each day.
Help support more victories for veterans. Go to DAV.org.
Broadcasting from the Peterman Brothers Heating, Plumbing, and Electrical Studios, this is Indy's Mobile News, 93 WIBC. WIBC HD1 Indianapolis. The news starts now.
Fox News. Former President Trump expected to be arraigned in New York City Tuesday to face charges related to hush money paid to a porn star. Republicans heaping on the criticism of Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, who worked to indict the former president.
House Republicans want Bragg to testify and hand over documents related to this investigation, but Bragg's office accused Republicans of partisan politics, writing in part, quote, based on your reportedly close collaboration with Mr. Trump in attacking this office and the grand jury process, it appears you are acting more like criminal defense counsel trying to gather evidence for a client than a legislative body seeking to achieve a legitimate legislative objective.
Fox's Nate Foy in New York. At least 21 people were killed from tornadoes and severe weather yesterday in multiple states. Arkansas, one of them. Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
In a federal perspective, I would say that everyone is working in total lockstep, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure the people of our state are back on their feet again.
The governor declared a state of emergency. The city of Little Rock among the areas pummeled. Mayor Frank Scott Jr.
We deem to be at least 2,100 residents within the western portions of Little Rock and southwestern portion of Little Rock were impacted. We know from Energy Arkansas, 27 to 30,000 homes are without power.
Deaths also reported in Indiana, Alabama, Tennessee, Illinois, Mississippi. The Israeli military says a Palestinian driver rammed his vehicle into a group of Israelis in the occupied West Bank today. Earlier in the day, Israeli police shot and killed a man who they say tried to snatch an officer's gun at an entrance to a Jerusalem holy site. A Ukrainian court has ordered a leading Orthodox priest to be put under house arrest for allegedly justifying Russian aggression, a criminal offense. America is listening to Fox News.
Stay on top of the latest forecast with America's Weather Team in the palm of your hands.
Here's the latest from America's Weather Center.
It's Fox weather updates throughout your busy day, every day.
5 inches of rain by tomorrow.
Temperatures being 30 degrees above average.
Put the power of over 100 meteorologists and the worldwide resources of Fox in your hands with the Fox Weather Podcast. Precise, personal, powerful. Subscribe and listen now at foxnewspodcasts.com. Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now.
Hundreds of thousands of Floridians on Medicaid this month may start to lose.
93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
Communities band together. Cloudy and somewhat windy overnight, headed into a fairly sunny Sunday. I'm Sasha Nixon. Here's what's trending this hour. Leaders from around the state have been sending their love and support to Sullivan County after severe storms killed at least 3 people and damaged more than 200 homes Friday. Sullivan Mayor Clint Lamb said,
I can honestly say everybody, Todd Young's office, all of them, everybody has been in touch and reached out, and it's just amazing. When a community, when a state, when all levels of government come together, this is proof that it does work. We're all a team in this, and we're all in it together.
If you or someone you know needs immediate help, contact the Red Cross. And because of these storms, many are looking to help their communities recover. However, Whiteland Fire Department Chief Eric Funkhauser says,
we did ask everybody today just to kind of stay back and let us finish our job and get through all of that.
He says it can be dangerous for the community to be out right after severe storms, as unstable structures, fallen power lines, and more continue to pose serious risks. That being said, if you would like to find a way to get out in central Indiana this weekend, consider visiting the Indiana Artisan Spring Market Sunday. Doors open at 10 a.m. at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. Rosalind Demery is one of the organizers of the market. She says there will be about 100 artisans there.
At least 25 will be demonstrating their creative process in their booth, and all the foods and wines will be sampling. One of the reasons this is the best in Indiana is because the designation Indiana Artisan is given by the state.
Demery says the market is the state's premier art and food experience. On the level, on the go, and on WIBC.com. Now here's the forecast from the American Standard Heating Weather Center.
For tonight, mostly cloudy, breezy, low temperature of 29 degrees. Tomorrow, clouds decrease, a sunny afternoon, a pleasant day with our high temperature at 58 degrees. I'm Wish TV Storm Track 8 meteorologist Ryan Morse for 93 WIBC.
It's just alcohol. Everybody drinks. You may have already heard this statement from your teen. I'm Tammy Silverman with Indiana Youth Institute. Alcohol is the substance most commonly abused by teens. Survey data shows that 2 in 10 Indiana high school students reported drinking in the past month, and more than half of Hoosier teens say it would be easy to get alcohol. How do you talk with your teen about alcohol use, especially if they see peers or adults drinking? First, understand that your child may point out contradictions in our society's views on alcohol. It's okay to acknowledge those facts. Talk with your teen about the many risks of alcohol use. During your conversation, you can both validate their views and uphold your family values. You are the first line of defense against alcohol abuse, so don't be afraid to talk to your teen. What you say has a big influence on their decision to drink or not. This Kids Count Minute is a message from Indiana Youth Institute. For more parent tips, visit IYI.org.
Kids count on you.
Woodard M. Hart, Henry Reeves & Wagner. Over 140 years specializing exclusively in patent, trademark, trade secret, and copyright law and litigation. On the web at uspatent.com. Indy Humane. Find your new best friend today. Visit indyhumane.org.
Now you've got a gun guy. Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back for hour number 2 of the Gun Guy Show here on 93 WIBC. We're glad you're with us. As I got into last week, there's a proposed constitutional amendment that is being discussed and voted upon in the Indiana General Assembly, and this is seeking to create an amendment to the Indiana Constitution, something that hasn't done very frequently, although the last time it was done was really only a few years ago, and we added a constitutional amendment that actually protects the right to hunt and fish in Indiana as a constitutional freedom, really part of the Bill of Rights, quote unquote, of the Indiana Constitution. But now there's a proposed resolution. And by the way, I had Professor John Hill from the IU McKinney School of Law, where I went to school and of which I am a proud alumnus. I graduated long before Professor Hill started teaching there. But he's a professor of constitutional law, and we talked about it, and we talked about some of the problems with it. And by the way, I say we, mostly I, got things a bit wrong. And I went back and read and listened to the podcast, and I think we were off just a bit on a point, which is Professor Hill and I both used the term a couple of times that to amend the Indiana Constitution, the resolution has to pass both houses of the Indiana General Assembly, the House and the Senate. We said in 2 sessions, or 2 separate sessions, and we kept using the term sessions, which would imply that if it passed this year and then passed again next year in the 2024 session, given the terminology we were using, then it would then go out to be voted upon by the public at large, really as a referendum in the next general election. And that was wrong. And my friend Jerry Torr, state representative, chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the House, gave me a very friendly nudge as he is prone to do. And Jerry, if you're listening, don't ever stop doing that. because if I misstate something on process or the legislative process we have here in Indiana, the rules in the General Assembly, then Jerry does a great job of very gently and kindly bringing me back around and giving me the correct information. And the correct information actually is, and I talked to Professor Hill about this after the show, and he also didn't realize that he and I were misspeaking. It takes a constitutional amendment takes being passed in two different general assemblies, meaning we'd have to have another election first. It's not session of the General Assembly. It has to be passed by two separate general assemblies. So we'd have to go through another round of elections, and only then, if the same resolution passed in that General Assembly, would it then be put out to a public vote. But more substantively, and by the way, whenever I find that I've misspoken in some way or I've got something wrong, I always want to make sure I get the correct information out there. And thanks so much to Representative Chairman Jerry Torr for helping me along those lines. But more substantively, there are some real issues with this constitutional amendment, because what it does is it takes the current language of the Indiana Constitution, where it says that bail shall be available. It says, in all cases except those involving treason and murder. In all other cases other than treason or murder, bond or bail shall be available. And what Senate Joint Resolution 1 does, which, by the way, has already sailed through the Senate and it's now being discussed in the House. In fact, there was a hearing last Wednesday in the House, I believe, Courts and Criminal Code Committee, where some concerns were raised, and a lot of the concerns that were raised were exactly the same concerns that Professor Hill and I discussed on my show, which is the amendment would say not only in cases of murder or treason or where the accused poses a substantial risk to another person or the community. Substantial risk. What does that mean exactly? Substantial. And doesn't that mean whatever a judge wants it to mean? And could we end up having bail or bond denied in a whole host of cases where it really shouldn't have been? And substantial risk to the community. I mean, I've heard people voice concerns to say a judge who simply hates the Second Amendment could say, well, gosh, this person's a gun owner. And we understand they possess an arsenal. I hear that term all the time. You have an arsenal. I don't know what it takes to have an arsenal. I own a fair number of guns. I'm sure there are people out there that would call what I own an arsenal. Well, then obviously I pose a substantial risk to the community if I have an arsenal in my home, quote unquote. And look, is that a little bit of paranoia? Yeah, maybe. But that's the danger when you write something that's so amorphous and so vague. And in fact, there are constitutional requirements that any criminal statute itself be so clear and understandable that a common citizen can read it and understand what's legal and what's not legal. Well, it seems to me we're proposing a constitutional amendment that is in and of itself is so vague that it could be interpreted to mean a variety of different things. And listen, when you go through the authors and the sponsors of this, these are good people. And they're trying to respond to a legitimate concern. That's why I don't want to be a hypocrite on this, because listen, on this show and on the Hammer and Nigel show repeatedly, especially when I come in and do Monday Gun Day at 3:35 every Monday afternoon, we talk all the time about we have this revolving door of the criminal justice system. And too many violent, dangerous criminals and violent, dangerous repeat offenders keep getting bonded out and kicked right back out onto the street. And while they're out on some ridiculously low bail, they're out committing more murders or going after the witnesses against them. And it just perpetuates itself. And that's a legitimate concern, and I've been very vocal about that. I've had my good friend FOP President Rick Snyder, on my show. He's been on Hammer and Nigel when I've co-hosted or been in for Monday Gun Day, and he says exactly the same thing, and he's right. And it's a legitimate concern. But is this the right fix? That's the issue. And a lot of times when we have a really good motivation, we have a solid reason for doing something, somebody slaps something down on a piece of paper and we look at it and we say, yeah, there you go. That addresses that very legitimate concern that the community has, that lawmakers ought to be addressing. But not often do we say, all right, the good thing here is that more really violent people will be kept in jail. What's the flip side of that? What's the potential downside? How could this be potentially misinterpreted or misused? You know, how could people who don't deserve to have this directed at them and where they end up not having bond or bail available to them when but for this constitutional amendment, that wouldn't happen. The good news is that, as I understand it, and we'll have Kelly from Avon, good friend. Kelly was there, and he attended that hearing. I had to be in court on Wednesday, and so I was going to be there to express my concerns. But here after this break, we'll have Kelly on, who will report on what happened at that hearing. And as I understand it, there was an amendment proposed that directly responds to, and I'm not taking credit for why this happened by any means, but some of the same concerns that we talked about right here on this program, and that Professor Hill and I talked about specifically on this program. Those exact same concerns were voiced by committee members. I would like to think, my ego would like for me to think they heard those concerns here on the Gun Guy Show. I do not know that that's the case, and I won't slap myself on the back quite yet. But some of the same concerns clearly were voiced by committee members and by people who testified. And an amendment, as I understand it, was proposed that would deal with some of the ambiguity that a lot of us have so much concern about. So we'll get into that, and we'll have Kelly on here in just a bit. Right now we're taking a break. Give us a call. Join the discussion, 317-239-9393. That's 317-239-9393. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Kendall and Casey.
Jeff Reitz, Guinness Book of World Records, the most consecutive visits to Disneyland. 2,995 days in a row.
Why didn't he just get a job there?
Great point, Kev. Maybe Kings Island will be his next conquest. I don't know.
That says greatest achievement.
Does he put that on his resume?
I don't think he has a resume.
Kendall and Casey. Weekdays 9 till noon on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. Our next Essentials of Indiana gun law class is coming up Thursday evening, May 11th. A lot of folks have asked for a weekday evening class. This is 5 to 9:30, conveniently located at Indy Arms there at 2550 East 55th Street. Great place to shop as well if you want to get there a little early. But this is 4.5 hours of the most important legal information you need as an Indiana gun owner. When are you justified in using force, including deadly force? When are you legally justified in pointing your gun at someone, because we have a crime in Indiana that's a felony called pointing a firearm. So by definition, you have to know when you're justified and when you're not. That and a whole heck of a lot more, including all the places where you're prohibited from possessing firearms, and a lot of information that if you carry a gun, certainly, even if you just own a gun, you need to know if you live here in Indiana and you're a gun owner. It's $50 for an individual, $95 for couples. You can sign up right online at tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
You had a solid retirement dream. Sell your home in a few years, bank the equity, downsize, and travel. But inflation and recession has you wondering if all of your hard-earned equity will still be there. What if you could recession-proof your equity right now? You can with TrueHold. TrueHold will buy your home for its best current value before a recession can erode it. You get to bank all the cash now and live in your home for as long as you want. And TrueHold covers all property taxes, insurance, repairs, and maintenance. And since TrueHold pays your home's current value in cash now, it's yours to do whatever you'd like. Don't wait for inflation, recession, and interest rates to erode your home's value. Visit TrueHold.com and discover how much TrueHold will buy your home for today, based on its best current value, not what's coming. Call 1-855-300-9993 or visit TrueHold.com. The smarter, fastest way to cash out on your home's value without having to move. That's TrueHold.com.
Tamer and Nigel for Window Nation. Everyone loves a smart investment, and there is no better place to put your money right now than in your home. Window Nation has the perfect offer for anyone with a home at least 20 years old. Protect and increase the value of your home and energy efficiency by installing new Window Nation windows. Window Nation is making it insanely easy to do so with 0% interest for 5 years. Plus, Window Nation will give you 2 windows free with every 2 you purchase.
Go with the window company that has installed nearly 2 million windows, including mine, by installers with over a decade of experience using only top-of-the-line installation materials, which is why 96% of all installations require no follow-up service. Call Window Nation today and lock in these limited-time savings when you need them the most. 866-90-NATION and pay 0 interest for 5 years. The life of your loan, and get 2 free windows with every 2 that you buy. 866-90-NATION or go to windownation.com. Tell them Hammer and Nigel sent you.
For adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy, now there's Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months, and Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Nothing and me go hand in hand. Nothing on my skin, that's my new plan. Nothing is every day.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms, such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
With Skyrizi, you could achieve 90% clearer skin. Ask your doctor about the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
I asked what kind of family she wanted. She said, a family like yours.
Learn more about adopting a teen at adoptuskids.org. You can't imagine the reward. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Get your air conditioner ready for spring and the hot summer ahead. On the South Side, call Marshall Mechanical Heating and Cooling. Call themarshallnow.com, your American Standard Air dealer.
He's a Second Amendment attorney. He's an NRA certified firearms instructor. He's the gun guy. Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. And I mentioned my friend Kelly. You know him on INGO, the Indiana Gun Owners Forum, as Kelly and Avon. But Kelly routinely shows up, man. I mean, he's a proud member of the 2A Project, and I'm proud to have him. But he shows up when there are gun-related or self-defense-related issues or constitutional issues, just things of interest. Kelly shows up, he testifies, and he always has incredibly important information, usually including some really excellent statistics that bear directly on whatever issue might be discussing. But Kelly, welcome back to the Gun Guy Show, man. Thanks for calling.
Hey, Guy. Thanks for having me on.
So you and I talked about SJR 1, that's Senate Joint Resolution 1, which is this constitutional amendment that would allow judges to deny any bail whatsoever at any amount simply because someone poses, in their view, a substantial risk to the community. And those words, to me, are so vague that they really create a lot of problems. And from a constitutionalist standpoint, I'm not sure that's consistent with due process or consistent with other constitutional protections through the criminal justice system, recognizing it's an attempt to respond to a legitimate concern, which is violent criminals getting spit right back out onto the street. This was up for a vote after having sailed through the Senate. Without having, I think, much scrutiny. It looks like the brakes may have gotten pumped a little bit in the House, but you were at the hearing last Wednesday, and tell us what happened there.
Oh, sure was, Guy. And I'm glad you and Professor Hill were on last week, and you expressed your concerns about how vague it was. I mean, it was definitely not on my radar until then, and I did a little bit of research, and I said, oh, wow, that is vague. And so I had a good 3.5, 4 minutes of material put together, and was down there And I won't go into the 4 bills we had to sit through to get to this one. That was kind of painful.
That's part of the process, isn't it? We've been down that road before.
Yeah. Now, it wasn't as bad as the racehorses on steroids bill we sat through, but it was pretty close.
That's right.
And then, so I'm sitting there, we get to it. Senator Cook was up there, or Cook, excuse me, was talking about it. And I had, where my concerns were, because murder and treason, we know what that means.
Sure.
And whoever wrote treason into the Indiana Constitution, they were reading the U.S. Constitution because it was almost word for word.
Yeah.
And then I'm saying, when I was going to get down to the end, I was going to say, this only adds 21 words, add a few more. And it was to make it more specific, individual with a violent criminal history or presenting imminent risk to personal injury to others, something like that. Mm-hmm. And then while Senator Cook is talking, he says, I'm also proposing this amendment. And of course, hadn't read it because this was all new to me. And I'm got it pulled up on my screen now. An offense other than murder or treason shall not be bailable if the state proves by clear and convincing evidence that no release conditions will reasonably protect the safety of any other person or the community. And so while I'm sitting there, I'm looking at my notes. I'm saying, gee, that's pretty close to what I'm recommending that they say. And about 10 seconds later, Wendy McNamara, the chair, says, calls my name. I'm like, oh, well, gee, thanks, Wendy.
Yeah.
And so I got up there and I said, well, I had signed up to oppose this, and I'm going to save you all some time and skip down to this part of it. And I kind of went over, this is what I recommended, and sounds an awful lot like what Senator Cook just said. So it did alleviate a lot of my concerns on it. And if you remember when Craig Haggard's bill was in her committee, she called me after you. I love going following lawyers that talk about Second Amendment for a living. That's always fun.
Well, good. Well, Kelly, I'm glad you're there. And the amendment sounds like a substantial improvement. But the good news is if it gets amended in the House, and apparently they voted on the amendment and they voted to adopt the amendment, correct?
Oh, it's showing in the latest version. It is not showing as well, hang on here. I probably clicked the wrong thing. No, it doesn't show as a House amendment. It is right in the latest version of the bill. That is right at the end, and it's one I like. It's very short. It's easy to read.
Okay. Well, it sounds like then. I mean, they did have a vote while you were there at the hearing, right, on the amendment?
Correct. It was the joint resolution, and then they did it with the amendment all at once.
Okay.
So the vote
good.
was
Because I mean, and we're saying the same thing. And Kelly, thanks for being there, and thanks for calling. And we're lucky that you were there, and I'm glad you were. But the way it works is when an amendment gets proposed in a committee, there are a couple different times a bill can be amended. A bill can be amended in committee. This is after it's filed, where anyone essentially can propose an amendment. And a lot of times they do it through a committee member, or committee members themselves can propose their own amendments. Then the committee votes to either accept or reject the amendment. And then if they accept the amendment, then they vote to advance the bill or not. That is, recommend it back to the floor of the House or Senate to then be voted on. Then it goes for what's called a second reading when it gets out of committee, if it passes out of committee. And then members of that House, of that chamber, can propose amendments as well. And before the bill is voted on, those amendments have to be dealt with. And in fact, it can be kind of an underhanded strategy is the word I was looking for. If you want to kill a bill, you just propose about 20 different amendments to it. And you can make the process of getting it passed on second reading so distasteful, especially when the chamber we're dealing with doesn't have a lot of time. They got a really packed agenda, and leaders can simply decide not to call a bill because they don't want to fight through all the amendments. Others, when it's important and a priority, then we'll say, okay, all right, let's fight through them. We'll discuss them. We'll debate them. We'll vote them one at a time. All the amendments get defeated, and then it goes to the floor and is voted on. Then, once we get through the amendment process, it comes back for a third reading, and the final bill is then voted on in that chamber. If that chamber changes a bill from what they received from the other chamber. In other words, this SJR1, this proposed constitutional amendment, already passed the Senate in its original version. Then it comes over to the House. If the House passes a different version, then it has to go to what we call a conference committee. And that committee then has representatives from the Senate, representatives from the House. Those representatives can be replaced. They start off typically with members of each party. If it's a contentious issue along partisan lines, participants in the committee can be replaced. But they then vote, well, they debate and discuss what version or compromise version of the bill passed by each chamber, what it should look like going forward. Then the amended bill, as it comes out, gets voted on and has to have passed each chamber. Yeah, if it doesn't change at all from what came out of it, the committee it just got amended in, my understanding at that point, I may get corrected on this, is it just goes to the other house who then has to pass it. If that house has already passed that particular, or if that chamber, I should say, has already passed that particular version. But at any rate, that's where we are on this. So the fact that the House, and I applaud them for this, pumped the brakes and said, let's add some specificity to this. Doesn't mean that's going to be the final version of the bill. It just means that since it's different from what passed the Senate, it'll now go to a conference committee and they'll debate it. And I like that. I like that this part of the process. I like the fact that a House can say no, time out, or the Senate can if they're reconsidering something that passed on the other side, and say, let's improve this. Let's make this better, especially when we're talking about the Constitution of the state of Indiana. That ought to be a pristine document. There shouldn't be anything in that we look at and go, oof, that's so vague. It can affect people's rights and pre-existing constitutional rights in a way that we didn't want or predict because of some vague and amorphous or poorly defined terminology, which is, I think, what we were dealing with originally. That's not to impugn anybody's motives. Everybody's trying to be tough on violent criminals and solve this problem of the revolving door of the criminal justice system. So again, I do not want to be a hypocrite on that issue because I've been singing that tune with a lot of other people in this town for a long time. And I don't want to be accused of talking out of both sides of my mouth. But when we fix a legitimate problem, let's do it in the smartest possible way. I think we're a little closer to that right now with what the House did with this amendment. So I applaud Representative Cook and others who were in there on this process. It would be Senator there, excuse me. In the meantime, we're at the bottom of the hour. We're going to take a break, come back, and we're talking about pistol braces a little bit. Where are we? We've had some developments on that point. This is something that impacts millions and millions of gun owners. The Gun Owners of America came out and said there are 40 million pistol stabilizer braces that gun owners are using in Indiana. I think it's probably closer to about 10% of that. But it's still millions and millions of people, including a lot of people right here in Indiana. And there's some bad news on that front, including a judicial development that the people ought to be concerned about and know about. And that's what we'll get into when we come back. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Hey, this is Spencer Thompson at Thompson Furniture and Mattress in Columbus. Now through Monday, save big during our indoor-outdoor sale. Save 50% on Smith Brothers and Lazy Boy. Up to an extra 15% off Hollywood and Berlin Gardens outdoor furniture. And up to $300 off Sealy, Stearns & Foster, and Tempur-Pedic mattresses. Now through Monday, save on everything in the store only at Thompson Furniture and Mattress in Columbus with free delivery.
AE Ammo is Greenwood's ammunition superstore. The largest variety in training, hunting, and self-defense ammo with the best prices locally guaranteed. Factory new 9mm FMJ ammo starting at $12 per 50-round box. Factory new 50-round boxes, $380 from $14.99 and $45 ACP from $18.99. And with the AE Ammo Customer Rewards Program, start earning points today towards money back to use on future purchases. Shop in-store or online at aeammo.com.
Managing a teenager's ups and downs can be trying, even for the most patient parent. I'm Tammy Silverman with Indiana Youth Institute. During your child's teenage years, they are seeking separation and independence, which are natural developmental steps. But their feelings may come across as aggression, including verbal rudeness or physical behavior. Experts say this is not a power struggle or a sign of rejection. While your teenager may appear physically mature, keep in mind that the part of the brain that regulates self-control is not fully developed. As a parent, you can do a few things to help with this transition and keep your calm. It's important to acknowledge your teen's emotions and listen to their opinions. Use their behavior to open a dialogue and try not to critique their every move. A few adjustments in your approach can make a big difference in helping your teen navigate these tumultuous years. This Kids Count Minute is a message from Indiana Youth Institute. For more parent tips, visit IYI.org.
Kids count on you.
This hour is powered by Marshall Mechanical Heating and Cooling, your American Standard air dealer in Johnson County.
Joe Chiura. Crews continue to comb through the massive amount of rubble left from deadly storms that ripped through multiple states yesterday, killing at least 18 people. In Belvedere, Illinois, one person died when the roof of a packed theater collapsed.
When severe weather comes through a city, how it can wreak havoc on a community. It came through, caused the roof to collapse, and now one person has died. At least 28 others are injured. At least 2 of those injuries are life-threatening.
Fox Weather's Maddie Hicks. Ukraine getting another U.S. aid package, the latest costing about $2 billion.
It's going to include everything from precise bombs. It's going to have anti-tank weapons, tank munitions, fuel trucks, radar equipment, and it'll put the U.S. contribution at around $30 billion for Ukraine's defense.
Fox's Mike Tobin in Kyiv. America is listening at Fox News.
This week, it's the Early Bird Special, 20% off all fertilizer and container trees and shrubs at Sundown Gardens in Westfield, 186th Street and Spring Mill Road, sundown.gardens.com.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
No Kid Hungry is providing healthy meals and hope to hungry kids so they can build better futures. Learn more at helpnokidhungry.org.
Second to none on the Second Amendment. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. I'll tell you what, we've had Chuck on hold for quite a while. And so before we go into the pistol brace issue, Chuck, welcome to The Gun Guy Show.
Hi, guys.
Hey, man. Yeah, what you got?
This last Wednesday, I was listening to Hammer and Nigel, and Tony Kennett was on, and he started talking about the 1994 assault weapons ban. And he said repeatedly that it was repealed, and he said specifically by Republicans. Now, I'm getting old and my brain's getting mushy, but that's not the way I remember that working. So who deserves the correction here, me or Tony?
Yeah, I didn't hear that. And I like Tony. I've got a lot of respect for him, but he didn't get that quite right. And that is, it was never repealed. The so-called assault weapon ban of 94 existed on the books here in this country from 94 to 04. But it wasn't repealed, but it's no longer in effect. So you might be confused about how that can be. Well, that's because the original law, when passed, had its own sunset provision in it. And it said, unless continued by Congress, then it simply expires in 04 after 10 years on the books. And so what happened is Congress commissioned a very, very thorough research project by a group called the National Institute of Justice, which is the research arm of the Department of Justice. And the National Institute of Justice looked into what effect the assault weapons ban had from 94 to 04. And, you hear President Biden and you hear other folks out there saying, oh, well, we passed this assault weapon ban and we saved lives and we saved school children's lives and we, reduced violent crime and we reduced murders. And they have all these claims. Well, according to the National Institute of Justice, and this is a government report, right? This isn't coming from the NRA or the 2A Project or Gun Owners of America. This is coming right out of the U.S. government and the research arm of the Department of Justice. And they said, because so-called assault weapons have such an incredibly small impact and are involved in such incredibly few number of murders on a percentage basis, that were the assault weapons ban to be continued, the effects would likely be, quote unquote, too small to measure. Because under 2%, right around 1.5% of murders in this country are committed with anything that liberal politicians would call an assault weapon. And again, you can go through all the different numbers, and it varies a little year to year. But in most years, blunt objects like hands, fists, and feet. Oh, no, I'm mixing a couple categories. Personal weapons like hands, fists, and feet kill 2 or 3 times the number of people that all rifles, including as a subcategory, so-called assault rifles, kill. Blunt objects like baseball bats and 2x4s kill 4 to 6 times as many. Again, it varies a little year to year. But in a typical year, it's like 4x. All rifles, not just assault weapons, all rifles. And edged weapons, knives, other sharp objects, 6 times in a typical year, the number of all rifles. So this is all consistent. So the National Institute of Justice said to Congress, if you were to extend this beyond its expiration date, the effect would likely be too small to measure. So they said, okay, we tried it. It had no impact. All we did was influence or impact the rights of law-abiding citizens to own the firearms of their choice, that have the features of their choice, that are very, very well suited for any number of legal uses like home defense, yes, hunting, and I would like to say the other lawful purposes, which is defending the country against a tyrannical government, which is completely consistent with the Second Amendment to begin with. And so that's why it simply wasn't extended. So Congress didn't have to do anything to repeal it. And you can't blame it on Republicans or Democrats because in general, it wasn't extended. And it was simply allowed to die, which we're all glad it did, and we'll fight like hell to have it be resurrected, to have it not be resurrected. And by the way, I mean, there've been new assault weapons bans passed every year. Typically in the House, they die in the Senate. We had one passed last session of Congress, but they haven't gotten all the way through, and I'm still hoping they wouldn't. And one thing that's different today than existed from 94 to 04 is today we have a couple of Supreme Court decisions. One is Heller versus D.C. It's actually D.C. versus Heller from 2008. It says that those firearms that are commonly used for lawful purposes are protected by the Second Amendment. Now, that case was about handguns. But what's the most commonly owned rifle in America? The AR-15. Well, if it's the most commonly owned rifle in America, but yet still only contributes to like 1.5% of murders, then by definition, isn't it lawfully possessed by U.S. citizens for lawful purposes? Well, of course, by definition. Now, the Supreme Court decision in Heller was limited to handguns, but that definition it came up with of lawfully possessed by commonly possessed, I should say, for lawful purposes, couldn't fit better with the AR-15 or other so-called assault weapons. The other thing we have is we have the Bruin case, New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, which just came out last year. Now, that dealt with New York's licensing statute. that said, no, you can't have a license to carry unless you have some particularized need. Like someone's actively trying to kill you, only then do you get a handgun license. And the Supreme Court struck that down, so you say, okay, well, that's nice for New York, so what? Well, in striking it down, the Supreme Court said the test for determining what's constitutional and what's not under the Second Amendment no longer involves this sort of balancing test the courts were using all across the country that said something like, well, if there's a compelling governmental interest, like keeping people safe, then you can infringe a little bit, or even quite a bit, as long as you're not impacting a core privilege, a core right defined in a constitutional freedom or part of the Bill of Rights. But there was this balancing test. So courts were using that all across the country. Liberal courts were using it all across the country to say, well, an assault weapon ban keeps people safe. And that's a compelling governmental interest. So if it's a little bit of infringement, no problem. Bruen changed all that. There is no balancing anymore. Now it's based simply on the text, history, and tradition associated with that constitutional freedom. What does it say? What's the historical way it's been interpreted and applied in the U.S.? And the fact that assault weapon bans, quote unquote, are an incredibly recent invention from liberal governments makes me very optimistic, very, very, very optimistic that this court or any Supreme Court, without dramatically changing the laws on the books today, that is, their interpretation of the laws, and changing the Bruen decision and changing the Heller decision, that this court or any court applying the law as it exists today, including the Heller and Bruen decisions, would strike down an assault weapon ban. No doubt in my mind. Justice Kavanaugh wrote a dissenting opinion when he was still on the D.C. Circuit that said exactly that. They're commonly used for lawful purposes. You can't ban AR-15s or other firearms that, again, people who hate your constitutional rights call, quote-unquote, assault weapons. But that's where we are. That's what happened in 2004. So, and I didn't hear Tony's segment. I'll take you at your word, but he didn't quite get that right because it actually wasn't repealed. It just simply wasn't extended. I'll tell you what, we're taking a break. We'll be back for the last segment, and I will get into what happened on the pistol stabilizer brace issue here just this last week, which unfortunately is not good news for gun owners or folks that are hoping that the courts overturn what the ATF has done on pistol braces. But we'll get into that when we come back. We're taking a break. This is Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
The pothole. Formed in colder months, tiny fissures are born. And in no time at all, they grow into big, gigantic tire killers. That's why you need Matt Baird Traffic.
Watch out on Keystone Avenue.
He'll guide you around these hidden monsters.
Yeah, might as well call it a basement.
And on to safer ground.
You don't want to be in the far left lane.
Mornings and afternoons on 93 WIBC.
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. Our next Essentials of Indiana gun law class is coming up Thursday evening, May 11th. It's going to be 5 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. A lot of folks have asked for a weekday evening class, so that's exactly what we're going to provide. This is 4.5 hours of the most important legal information you need as an Indiana gun owner, and we'd love to have you there. $50 for an individual, $95 for couples. You can sign up right online at tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
For those fortunate enough to help the person who has always been their hero, find the care guides you need to help at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
There are screening tests to catch cancer early. Visit cancer.org/getscreened.
Were you born from 1945 to 1965? People born during these years are 5 times more likely to have hepatitis C. But most people don't know they are infected. So even if you try to eat right, exercise, and take care of yourself, you can still have hepatitis C, a serious liver disease that often has no symptoms. In fact, people can live with hepatitis C for decades without feeling or looking sick. But over time, hepatitis C can cause serious health problems, including liver damage, liver failure, or even liver cancer. Getting tested is the only way to know if you're infected with hepatitis C. That's why the CDC recommends everyone born from 1945 to 1965 get a blood test for hepatitis C. Treatments are available that can cure this disease. So talk to your doctor about getting tested. It could save your life. A message from the CDC.
Why? Why take a chance? Why risk a mistake? Why say something? We all have reasons why we choose to ignore the things that give us pause, that seem out of place, that don't feel right. The word why can either paralyze us or empower us to stand up and protect what we love. So if you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my family.
I see safe for my friends.
I see say for my students. We see say for each other.
I see safe because all of this matters.
We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies this community we're all a part of. So protect your everyday. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
Text and whatever. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Find the path to recovery that works for you. Learn more at cdc.gov/stopoverdose.
Your rights, your responsibilities, your guns. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back for the last segment here of the Gun Guy Show. Thanks so much for the folks who tuned in and watched the video broadcast. We kind of played around with that a little bit, changed the camera angle and the lighting. Looks a little better, which is not to say I'm much to look at, but folks are watching that. We're glad you did and have throughout the show, and thanks for the comments you've left there as well. The pistol stabilizer brace, what's going on here? If that's not an issue you're familiar with, that probably means you're not a frequent listener of the Gun Guy Show. But a pistol stabilizer brace was originally designed to go on a pistol, and keep in mind that a pistol, a firearm designed to be fired principally by one hand, if it's a pistol, then you don't have to register it as a short-barreled rifle, because if you have a rifle, which is a firearm designed to be fired from the shoulder, and it has a barrel less than 16 inches, that has to be registered under the National Firearms Act. You have to pay for your tax stamp. You have to go through another background check, and that's in order to have a short-barreled rifle, just like you do with a suppressor or short-barreled shotgun or a machine gun and some other firearms as well that are regulated by the NFA. So if it's a pistol that is designed to be fired with one hand, it's not designed to be fired from the shoulder, and it's got a short barrel, you don't have to register it as an SBR. The pistol stabilizer brace came out, and it's an attachment to a pistol, and it actually has a device that straps around your forearm. And it, just as the name suggests, pistol stabilizer brace, it's a brace designed to allow more people to fire a handgun with one hand and be stable and therefore accurate in the process. And it was particularly nice for disabled folks who may only have one working hand or one working arm. And they could shoot more guns, bigger guns, heavier guns with one hand with a pistol stabilizer brace. Well, then what happened is people sent that in because you can take that brace and set it against your shoulder and use it like a shoulder stock. Question became, well, does this mean that it's a short-barreled rifle because now it's designed to be fired from the shoulder? And ATF in 2012 came out and said, no, it's good. You put a brace on your pistol, it remains a pistol. So a lot of people came out and started making more and more of these things. ATF subsequently came out and said, and they went back and forth on this a couple times, but they ultimately said, no, even if you use it as a shoulder stock, just sort of incidentally from time to time, that doesn't change the design of the firearm, it's still a pistol. Well, now people were off and running. And people started manufacturing a whole bunch of these things. People started buying a whole bunch of them. In fact, people would tell you were nuts to go out and register a short-barreled rifle because all you had to do was just put a brace on it instead of a shoulder stock and still use it like a shoulder stock, and you could save the $200 and save the registration process. Well, as I predicted all along, I never trusted the ATF on this because I said, you know what, we're seeing too many of these. People think it's an easy workaround, the NFA. And I don't even own a pistol brace. I SBR'd everything that I had because I wanted to put a real stock on my firearm so I can use them as they're intended, which is a rifle. So fine, I register them as SBRs. ATF came out here at the end of last year, and it became final in January, and said, no, now if you got a brace on your pistol, you've turned it into a rifle and you have to register it. And it was more complex than that. It's a final rule that went through the rulemaking process, but it's a final rule now, and there's a grace period, 120 days, which ends the end of May. It says you got to register them now as SBRs, or you got to turn it back into a pistol, or you need to put a 16-inch barrel on it or longer. Well, people have been saying, okay, well, it's going to get overturned in the courts. The ATF can't just change the law. Only Congress can change the law, so it's going to get overturned by the courts any minute. And a lot of folks have said, well, I'm not going to register anything, or I'm not going to take the brace off my pistol because the courts are going to overturn this any time. And I went out on social media and I repeatedly said, don't be so sure. This is different. Why? Because ATF didn't change the words of Congress in terms of defining what's a pistol and what's a rifle. What they changed is their interpretation of what devices turn a pistol into a rifle under the definitions created by Congress. They're changing their interpretation. That's what government agencies do. And they can pass regulations that tell people, hey, here's how we're interpreting this. Doesn't mean they're necessarily right. Doesn't mean somebody couldn't still win that case in court. But it's going to affect who gets arrested and who gets prosecuted. Well, a court in the Northern District of Texas, which is a conservative jurisdiction, a lot of people were optimistic about how this was going to go. It was a lawsuit filed by the Firearms Policy Coalition and others. They asked for a preliminary injunction to say, strike this thing down. Just this week, 2 days ago, the court came out and denied that, saying, no, the agency had every authority to do exactly what it did. This is not good news. It's just one court, but it doesn't bode well. In the meantime, that brings us to the end of our show. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you come back next week. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Your city, your state.
It's what